Welcome to the iStart Insider Podcast, where we dive into the entrepreneurial journeys of young innovators, startup founders, and industry experts. I'm Saanvika, and I will be your podcast host for today. In this episode, we're excited to welcome Karissa Tang. Karissa is a 2026 Coca-Cola Scholar, an experienced student researcher, and is passionate about finance, education, and technology. Good afternoon, Karissa. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be on, and I'm excited for this podcast episode.
Yes, of course. We're so excited to have you here today. So, I thought that I'd start off the podcast by discussing one of your most notable accomplishments, your research into how AI could impact teenage jobs. So, you were featured in Forbes, NPR, and CNN as a high school student. What inspired your advocacy regarding AI's impact? And I saw that it all started with boba.
Yeah, so my aunt owns a boba shop, and I live in the Bay Area, so because of that, many people work boba jobs over the summer. And because my aunt owned a boba shop, that made me a bit of a magnet for summer jobs. So a lot of my friends were asking me if I could hook them up for my aunt to work a summer job. And I thought it shouldn't be too difficult to be able to land one. But after talking to her, I realized that she wasn't in need of any employees. And that really piqued my interest because I was like, it shouldn't be too hard to find a summer job. So I learned that it's because AI-powered kiosks were taking over the cashier roles at the boba chains. So that wipes out 1 to 2 employees per shop. And then when I looked into it a bit more, I looked at cashiers are the most popular teen jobs at grocery stores, for example. AI-powered self-checkout systems were taking over those jobs. And fast food counter workers, retail salespersons. There's so many different teen roles that were getting displaced by AI. So after a lot of data crunching, I found my net analysis, which predicts a 27% decline by 2030 for teen employment. So what really inspired my advocacy is that it was so applicable. Like I saw my teens around me, myself. It was hard for us to find teen jobs. And I saw the impact it really had on society. So that really inspired my research and super thankful and honored for it to be featured on a bunch of different media outlets and just very grateful for all the opportunities to do so. So yeah.
That's so incredibly inspiring. I mean, to take something as simple as working like a summer job as a teenager and to actually research and go into why these opportunities may be limited, I think a lot of our listeners could learn from that creativity and investigative skills. But building more onto your research and your passion for research, it seems like you've pursued it continuously throughout high school as a UCLA research assistant in venture capital based research. So, how do you think this early exposure to research opportunities impacted your high school career? And what advice do you have for high schoolers who may want to pursue similar opportunities?
Yeah, so it definitely impacted my high school career a lot. I got into conducting research at UCLA the summer right after my sophomore year, and I actually got it through a cold email. So super grateful that the professor I worked with that he took a chance on me and after interviewing allowed me to work under him for not just that summer, but also for like 2 years of high school. And it definitely taught me a lot. Not just learning about like the biotech or the quantum computing sector or market segments, but also it taught me about what goes into a great company because I worked on building a model that predicts the success rate of different companies. And I also got to practice cold calling a lot since I was cold calling companies and trying to understand their relationships with NVIDIA. And I think that's something that's a skill that I took with me to entrepreneurship or to composing music or anything I was doing. I think learning to cold call was something very valuable. And it also got me a lot more confidence in the research space. I think it is a bit intimidating when you first get started, but what I've learned is that it's not actually as difficult or intimidating as one may think. And I think just doing research at UCLA got my hands a little wet and my feet a little dirty in doing research and just being more comfortable in the space. So my advice to any high schoolers listening or anybody listening is that it's a lot easier to get started than expected. You could just start by cold emailing professors, and if that works, that's awesome. And if that doesn't work, that's also okay because there's many alternatives to doing research independently. For example, I think just thinking and writing about research ideas you have is one way of getting started. And I think when you're thinking about research ideas, try to view the world in a sense where you're trying to solve a problem or fill a gap that hasn't yet been filled. And that makes you really inspired to do your research because you see that it's really applicable. And then also, I think many people want youth perspectives. So I think that's big, leveraging the youth perspective you have. There's not enough youth writing about their voice in economics or in policy or in whatever. So really leverage your voice and really make your voice known in the world.
I think you've done exactly that. You've gotten involved in so many amazing unconventional opportunities that high schoolers don't really do. I mean, building on that, you were able to work in real venture capital settings through internships at NSV Wolf Capital and Westbound Equity Partners. So, how did you get involved? Was it similar to how you got involved in UCLA research? And what do you think these experiences taught you?
Yeah, so I got involved in UCLA through cold emailing. I did cold email a bunch of VC firms. Unfortunately, I didn't land a job through that. But I was able to connect with a few people. We were able to talk and get coffee and chat. So that was awesome. But I got these two roles. One was through a teacher in my school. She was my homeroom teacher, and her husband worked at the VC firm. So I asked her to connect me with her husband, and we had a good conversation. Very grateful that he let me join the team. And the other firm was from a family friend from a while back, and then my interviewer was from UCLA. They connected me with the interviewer. So just sort of the dots align in, and very grateful for that. Um, and sort of my advice to get started is to tap into the people in your network. There's so many adults, peers, family, friends around you. And if you're genuinely curious about the person they are, beyond the internship, beyond the role, beyond whatever college apps, the dots will land in place where you're able to connect with them in some way and see how perhaps your skills fit theirs or your interests fit theirs. And then also, relationships definitely compound. So once you get your first connection in the VC world or your first connection in the startup world, um, more start to land in place, and you're going to be growing. It's an exponential growth, sort of, I guess. And then what I've learned from those experiences, I'm definitely still learning a lot. There's still so much for me to learn, so much for me to grow in, relationally and professionally. But I think three main things. First, I learned how to ask better questions. A lot of the research I did was desk research, where I'm just researching on my computer. But a lot of it also was talking to people, like coffee chatting, networking calls, and that really taught me how to ask good questions, and ask better questions to really understand a problem. The second is how to think about startups. Right now, for example, I'm researching emerging segments within the AI agentic space. So, because I'm looking at emerging segments, that's allowed me to see why companies succeed and look into their the competition in their market, or how to avoid big players or the gaps they're filling. And the third is just getting my hands in the VC world and the finance and banking world, I guess. There's a lot you see on paper, but definitely getting involved in it is something that is helpful for me, just like getting my hands wet in it. So yeah, definitely a big process, but I've definitely been learning a lot and continuing to learn a lot throughout this process.
Yeah, definitely. I heard that you say that you get to work on learning how like agentic AI is helping with like venture capital firms, if I'm correct. So, how do you think that your previous like research in AI is
Mm.
connecting to like all of these findings that you're seeing in your internship?
Yeah, great question. So in the past, I did research about AI VC backed companies at UCLA. And then was able to attend like a case competition about AI and companies in the big companies like Microsoft and Salesforce and all that. So that was a great opportunity. And I think it was more like knowing the familiarity of words. Like I'd hear a word and I'd know it, or hear a person and somebody else would know a person and it'd connect. So I think just having that mapped out in my brain is very helpful. And then also doing research about AI's impact on teen employment. I think just the process of doing research is sort of what I'm doing in the VC company I'm working for. And it's just helpful to see those dots connect. And there's still a lot I'm learning. Like, for example, this summer at one firm, I'm doing research about AI agents, and at the other firm, I'm building an AI agent. So I'm going to be honest, at the beginning of the summer, I did not know what an AI agent was. And it's just a lot of learning on the fly, and just trying to gain as much as I can. But I'm just trying to absorb whatever I can learn. And I think that's how I view the world.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking about learning, besides internships and research, you've also gotten involved in finance and business by starting something entirely unique, Booted, your board game. Now, I've played plenty of games of Monopoly, but your board game is something very special. What got you interested in building an educational board game?
Good question. So before my freshman year of high school, I got COVID and my whole family got COVID. So we're stuck at home, we're pretty bored. So naturally we started playing board games. And actually not just like my family, but my extended family, like my cousins, also got COVID too. So first we're playing board games, like we're playing Stratego, Monopoly, Corkle. And then I was like, it'd be really awesome if we could build a board game. So then I just started getting with some a chess board and like pawns and trying to build out my own game. And I've always had it a bucket list goal to build a board game. Like in sixth grade, I was trying to build a board game too, and it was like on paper and pawns. But I always wanted to do something with the game, and I really enjoyed that process of building and play tested with my cousins, and they loved it, and they're like 4 to 8 at that time. So I was like, this really has potential, and I really enjoyed the whole process. Yeah, I think it was also very rare to see that it had both critical thinking and also like fun with playing the game together. And I felt like that had some traction. So then I just worked on building the game, getting it, manufacturing it, getting it on Kickstarter, getting it on Amazon, and I just really loved the whole process. So I guess what got me interested was I just really love the process and seeing a product come to life, and that really fueled my desire to build out the game.
I mean, with this entrepreneurial experience, I mean, you learned about entrepreneurship through your internships and your research, but like being hands, like boots on the ground, actually building your own business, how did it feel? Like, was it different? And what lessons have you learned, considering that a lot of our audience may want to build their own startups?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned is to try to enjoy the process. I think oftentimes like with college apps or scholarship applications and all that, there's naturally like we're like we want to try to build something so that it looks good on the app or whatever. And I think that's fair and that's valid, but I think just really go with what you love doing. And I think have the passion override any external factor involved, I guess. And I think that will really fuel your desire to build. So I think I also learned to dream big and also just go. There's going to be lots of highs and lows in building. I know there are times where I was so excited when I got the game on Amazon and so excited when I got the game on Kickstarter, but to get the game on Kickstarter at 30 days, where so it's like all or nothing system where either you raise this for me it was $7,000 or you don't raise it. And I was stressing because I didn't know if I was going to hit the goal, but we hit the goal like 2 days before. So there's a lot of highs and lows of building. And I tried to get it in a bunch of different stores. I think I emailed like 100 plus stores. I got it in a few, but many said no, and that's okay. And just going with the highs and lows and going with the kicks and punches and just seeing whatever you could learn from it. I think the biggest thing is seeing what you can learn and what you could build to impact people.
It's really cool that you got it in real stores. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna start looking out for Booted now. But beyond like your business and finance experience, you've also been a founder of K Create mobile apps, which I think you've shown your interest in technology through. So, how
Mm.
did you blend your passions for education and software development by building educational apps on there?
Good question. I think naturally I build apps or find problems and things I'm more involved in. And because I'm going to school from what 8 to 3 every day, I see a lot of kids who don't enjoy school. I think a lot of people are going through hard times and difficult moments and a lot of people although there are a rare few that do enjoy it, that's part of the schooling process, I guess, but it also reveals some gaps in just the educational system, where there's not, in my personal opinion, there's not much enough fun with learning. So my biggest thing is trying to gamify education. I did that through creating productivity tools with gamification or building mobile apps. For example, I worked at a company where I worked on building a sleep education app through a detective crime solving scene. So kids can learn about the biology and the science behind like sleep and like the different roles that doctors play in sleep and all that while playing a video game. And I think that's something that really resonated with me because I want to make learning fun and accessible. And I think the big answer to for how I blended the passions is just to look for issues in the world. And I think for many students, the issues are in education, but also it's okay that it's in something else. So look for issues in the world, keep track of issues in the world, like I have a list for it, and then try to build and fill in those gaps where there's issues in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great mindset to approach all experiences we have in high school. It may seem like we're doing just things to resume pad, but it should have an impact, right?
Hmm.
Now, all of these achievements led to you eventually being awarded the Coca-Cola Scholarship. Of course, being a Coca-Cola Scholar is an immense achievement. As one of the 150 students selected nationwide for this accolade, what lessons have you learned? And what advice do you have for high schoolers who may want to apply someday?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a big honor to be selected as a Coca-Cola Scholar, and I guess the biggest thing I've learned is I think it definitely confirmed my desire to impact people and inspired my desire to impact people. I think throughout high school, it's something that lingered in the back of my mind, but it wasn't something I actively like pursued. I did care about it, but I didn't actively like chase after it. But after being selected as a Coca-Cola Scholar, my mind was already shifting in the direction of what's my purpose and how do I really want to impact the world, and I think that really confirmed my desire to do so. And then from the Coca-Cola Scholars Banquet, after being selected, there's a banquet in Atlanta, which was a lot of fun. But I just learned from talking to the other Coca-Cola Scholars that everybody has such an amazing story. And I just learned so much from hearing their life backgrounds and where they came from and the stuff they're building. And it's just awesome to just gain new worldviews, by talking to people. Um, and I guess it's also a lot about leadership. So, sort of what I've learned with leadership is to one, try to get involved in as much as you can and whatever you can as it fits with your passions. Um, and then also to try to focus on serving that one person. So, for example, at my school, I go to a Christian school and we plan this worship night, my friends and I, um, like a few times a year. And what I've really learned from that is when I'm speaking or delivering a message or playing worship, that yeah, I'm trying to serve the community and focus on serving that one person and addressing that one person's needs and how they're doing. And then also, yeah, just trying to get involved in a bunch of things and trying to learn from it as much as you can. And advice for high schoolers wanting to apply, I guess how the system works is that first there's like the first round is mainly numbers, so your grades, your scores, the awards that you've gotten, the activities you're involved in, the hours per week. Then after that is essays, and then after that is interviews. So it's definitely quite a long process, but it's all worth it in the end. I think my biggest piece of advice is to be authentic, to yes, have the numbers and have the accolades, but also to really love what you're doing. And then also I think I was a bit afraid because I felt like I didn't have one big spike, as in I was involved in entrepreneurship and tech, but also like a lot in music and composing music and with leadership and with county government involvement and with magic. And I just had so many different things and I was a bit afraid that like because I was involved in so many things that wouldn't make me stand out. But I do think if you have one big spike to go for that, but if you don't, to not let that drag you down, but to instead try to go big in everything you're doing and then showcase that to in your essays or your activities and such. So, yeah, there's definitely like it's definitely a big process and a long process, but I think it's really worth it. It's super worth it, and you're gonna learn a lot along the way. So just really showcase your activities and what you've learned and how that stems from your core values. So how any activity, let's just say for me, it's like doing magic tricks, that stems from my desire to connect with people. So it's like connecting anything you do to a core value of yours and showcasing who you really are.
That's so amazing to hear. That's really helpful, I think, for a lot of our students who are approaching their senior year and maybe looking to apply to any scholarship, whether it be the Coca-Cola Scholarship or the wide host that we can apply to. So I think you did a great job of applying your passions and their purposes because as we end off our podcast today, I wanted to congratulate you on your acceptance into Stanford. So as you head off to college this year, what plans do you have for the future to nurture your love for advocacy, entrepreneurship, technology, music, magic? It seems like you have a lot going on for you. And do you have any takeaways from your experiences?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in terms of how I want to continue it, I think that's something I'm still thinking about and sort of trying to discern right now, especially before I enter college. I'm considering going to perhaps the startup world or the nonprofit world or the VC world or both or some combination of that. I'm not too sure yet, but I'm just trying to continue learning and growing and just seeing what aligns with me. I think when I step foot on the Stanford campus, I'll be I'll sort of figure it out along the way, and I think that's part of the journey. So, yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that question, but that's a great question, and I think I'll sort of see it as I get into it. But right now, I've been more involved in the VC world this summer, and I guess a little bit of the startup world, and then we'll see where that branches into. And then my biggest takeaways is to number one, dream big. Um, to really think big and think what are those bucket list goals or what are those side quests or what are those like just what are the awesome things that you want to do. And I think many of my like what I did in high school stemmed from that. And then try to use each activity as a way to grow yourself and grow the knowledge you know, the skills you have, the values you have, and then also try to use every activity to impact people. And just in your day to day, there's so many opportunities to impact people in the words you say or the actions you do. That's something I'm still trying to remember and be reflective of. So showcase that in your activities and also just the way you live your life. And then second, which sort of counterbalances dreaming big, is to also take it one day at a time. Like there's gonna be days where it's gonna be hard to get up and do stuff, and there's gonna be days where you're super passionate. But just take each one day at a time and ride with the wave, and also create space for reflection. I think recently I've been thinking a lot about like what my purpose is, and um, I think I want my actions to stem from my purpose and to really be intentional. So for myself, like my purpose stems from my Christian faith and trying to glorify God in my actions and in the way I impact people, and also to try to grow myself in the person I am. And I think having that space for reflection and the space to know your purpose and why you're doing what you're doing fuels every action that you take after that. So that's something I'm still continuing to work on and continuing to learn from. But that's definitely something I've learned and something probably my biggest takeaway from high school.
That's a great takeaway. I think I'll definitely take that advice, taking it day by day, but also dreaming big. Well, thank you so much, Karissa, for joining us on iStart Insider today. We really, really valued all your experiences and all of your advice. I think that our viewers have learned a lot from you, so we wish you the best of luck on all of your future endeavors. For our listeners, stay tuned to our next episode and make sure to keep watching iStart Insider. Thank you.